like to call the departmental meeting to order. If you'd stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome everyone watching at home. I see everyone's safely apart. Please maintain 6 feet distance. And Madam Clerk, if you'd call the roll, please.
Trustee Carter?
Present.
Trustee Mariscal?
Present.
Trustee Kazan?
Present.
Trustee Gett?
Present.
Trustee Weisenberg?
Present.
Trustee DeVore?
Present.
Okay, we would be approval of the minutes from the departmental meeting on Tuesday, August 25th, 2020. I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
And a motion
Second.
and a second. Any questions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. Okay, we'd be at comments from the audience. If you'd like to address the board, come up to the podium, please. If you would give your name and address and try and keep your remarks under 5 minutes. Any comments from the audience? Going once? Going twice? Comments are closed. We'll go on to old business. Any old business come before the board? Hearing none, we'd be at new business. Yes, I closed comments. What do you have?
I had old business,
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yes. Brought up about possibly putting our outdoor collection box out on the collection curb, and we're just going to see if there's a response to that or a vote, or...
There's been no discussion on it. It was brought up last meeting. We have not had any discussion on it. If the board wants to briefly discuss it, they can. If you want to move it to another meeting. Any feelings either way?
I'm okay with
It's
it.
fine with me.
Yeah,
I have no issues.
I don't have
Yeah.
a problem with it.
Sounds like you have a location.
Any old business for the board? Okay, we'd be at new business. As long as there's no objection, I'm going to move fire ahead of administration. I know people are here mainly for fire discussion tonight, so I want to be sensitive to people's schedules. Trustee Weisenberg, let you start this out. First is a discussion on missed calls and a presentation by Dave Tuttle. Go ahead, Brandon, however you want to roll this out. Go ahead.
Sure. Thanks, Mayor. Before we get started, Chief Walters has an announcement he wants to make.
Thank you. After careful consideration, I have decided to postpone my retirement. I cannot, in good conscience, abandon the men and women of the Peoria Heights Fire Department when so much is at stake. I have a duty to rebuild the shattered morale of our current membership, which is the lowest I've ever seen. I will continue to fight to keep this fire department intact and in place where it belongs. I can only hope that this decision may help alleviate and reduce some of the immediate concerns that village board members have regarding the future functionality of this department. I remain available at any time to talk or discuss matters regarding our department. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Walters.
Thank you, Chief.
All right, Trustee Weisenberg, proceed however you want.
Sure. Thanks, Mayor. I believe we have Mr. Tuttle here with a presentation.
Dave, welcome. Chief, you want to set this up? You and I have known Dave a long time, but you know him much better, so.
Yes, David is the 911 ETSB chairman. He's also the supervisor of Peoria Dispatch, and he's also a longtime fire chief of, I believe, Logan Trivoli. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So,
Welcome,
thanks,
Chief Tuttle.
yeah, thanks for being here, David.
Well, thank you. I didn't know I was going to do a presentation, but I'll be glad to talk about the numbers. Chief Walters and I have talked a couple times in the last, 2 or 3 times in the last week. Originally in 2019, we were asked to provide a report in early 2020 for the number of responses for the Peoria Heights Fire Department by unit, and including that was the number of missed calls. And what we classified at the dispatch center as a missed call was if there were no units assigned to that. We didn't actually go to the recordings and listen to the actual calls for service. So while that may give a general picture, it doesn't necessarily give the whole picture, and Chief Walters and I had that discussion. And there's some different scenarios involved with why they wouldn't necessarily be a missed call, but we wouldn't show a unit on the call. Could be canceled en route, could be that somebody came to the station, wasn't able to respond for some reason, probationary, that sort of thing. So we went back and revisited the calls that we were able to revisit and listen to some of the recordings to see exactly what occurred. And we came up with an updated count of 107 missed calls. And I believe that Chief Walters, their call count for missed calls, I think, was 82 calls. So it was fairly close. But that's how we came to the numbers, was that we went through individually all of the computer-aided dispatch reports, and basically any call for service that did not have a unit assigned, that's how we considered it a missed call. So we did not go into the depth that Chief Walters and his staff would have been able to do with the fire reports and that sort of thing. So be glad to answer any questions related to what we were able to put together
Anyone
for
have
you.
questions for?
Do you happen to know how many of those were fire calls and how many of them were EMS calls?
On the missed calls,
Yeah.
I do not have the, I believe that, no, I do not have the numbers as to which were fire calls and which were EMS calls as far as being missed. We could go back and revisit that. I mean, we have the actual printouts. We could go back and look at that again, or, and we know how many EMS calls they had in 2019, 761, compared to 141 fire calls, so.
We had 141 fire calls,
Yep, and 761.
and those were calls that we responded to? Or
Well, no,
for service in general?
those were the calls that you were dispatched to.
Okay.
So the number of so-called missed calls would be out of those numbers.
Is it, would it be possible for you to get back to Dustin on how many of those are fire calls, and he could email us on how many missed
Sure.
fire calls we had?
It's going to take me probably 5 or 6 days to do that, but you want to know how many of the so-called missed calls were fire calls compared to EMS, is that
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Okay. Yep. Can do that.
Anyone else?
You said you were a fire chief of a volunteer department.
I am at Logan Travola.
Did your fire department ever miss calls?
No, we have not in the last number of years. We're blessed to have about 52 personnel on the roster, but we do not get near the number of calls that you get.
Right.
We get about 450 a year, so about half of what Peoria Heights gets.
Do you respond to EMS calls as well?
We do, yes. Yep.
What was our total? 700 and something?
The totals that we dispatch you for, 761 EMS and 141 fire.
So
in
trustee
2019.
Marshall's 902 calls.
Right.
And of the 141 fire calls that we were dispatched to, we missed 107 of those?
No, the 107 is a combination of both of those,
Okay.
the 761 and the 141. Yeah.
82 fire calls, you said, right?
No, the number that the Peoria Heights Chief Walters and his staff, they went through all of the individual also, and they came up with 82 missed calls. So the variation is, our number was 147. We revisited those after communicating with Chief Walters. We went to 107, and Chief Walters' numbers is 82.
And trustee Kazam, I do believe that, speaking with Chief Walters, that those missed calls were all EMS calls, that they had not missed any significant event calls, which would be fire, cardiac arrest, or accidents.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Chief Tuttle, thanks for being here this evening.
You're welcome.
I have a question for Chief Walters, if this is the
Sure.
appropriate time to ask.
Chief?
Chief, how long, so you're postponing your retirement for a finite amount of time, indefinitely, until we can figure this out?
Till we can figure this out.
Okay.
I cannot leave him like this, so. Can I comment on some of the things that Chief Tuttle was talking about, or some of the numbers? Is that okay?
Yep.
As Dave Tuttle said, once we found those numbers, this whole thing was a surprise to me. As I had told Trustee DeVore 2 meetings ago, she asked me pointedly, how many calls have you missed? And my response to her is, I really don't know, because that is not something we have tracked before. A lot of departments around here don't track it. So when we found these magic numbers of 150 missed calls for 2019, and I think it was 91 for 2020, of course that causes me some concern. So we were able to get the information that Dave Tuttle had, sent it to us, and we compared it. We did a comparative analysis with our information, which is run off the daily run sheets and the incident reports. That's the true information for us. It has the specifics of the incident. And again, the numbers are changing, but what we were originally given was 902 calls we were dispatched to and 147 we missed, and that's from CAD. In our findings, we had 861 calls we were dispatched to, because that's the amount of reports that we had to do, was 861. And out of that, we had 82 that was missed. That's 9.5% of the calls. There was another branch that we called other, and there were 25 in it, and that were the ones where we had personnel respond to the station, but they did not go to the scene, and that was 3% of the calls, because the responders that got here didn't have the appropriate medical license to respond to an EMS call, or they didn't have enough personnel to respond. Per our SOG at that time, our standard operating guideline, we outlined how many people go and all this kind of information, or they did not have an appropriate driver's license. According to CAD for 2019, I don't know what the number we were dispatched for in 2020, I'm sorry, for 2020, but the number that I saw, because we had to go through our records through July. We did not have August records yet, and I know the records that Dave had provided was all the way through August. So July, they showed 80 missed. And there's also another little area to this called Protocol 36. When Protocol 36 hit in March, it changed how we respond. And at that particular time, I don't think we had anything fully set in stone. So it showed 80 calls that we missed so far this year, and 6 Protocol 36, Protocol 36, and I'll get to that in a minute. Our records reflected that we've responded to, by the end of July, we had responded to 509 calls. We had missed 42. And there was 26 in that other area, and then we had 28 that were Protocol 36. But out of the 509, Peoria Heights Fire responded to 441 calls, which is 86% of the calls. Now, the Protocol 36, we're referring to it as Protocol 36 screening. It began on March 12th of 20, and per an agreement that we have with AMT and through the PAMS, Peoria Heights Fire Department would man the station, but not respond to the scene unless requested by AMT to reduce exposure. So we had personnel that were responding here and standing by. But to reduce exposure down there, we would not go on the way to the scene unless specifically requested by AMT, whether it was AMT contacted dispatch center or they called us directly. So we had personnel up here standing by just in case they needed us. They had said 6. We said 28 because there were 22 calls that appeared to have been counted as a missed call since no apparatus responded. Okay? Now, the disparities in the numbers so far between what Dave has presented, what I'm presenting, may be attributed to the fact that the CAD information is raw data. Pretty much what I received was raw data that had not been refined to specify these particular questions. Deferrals and cancellations have been counted as missed calls, plus other dispatch variances. Could be no incident assigned, wrong disposition code. There's a laundry list of stuff. Fortunately, I have 2 people on my department that were either former dispatchers or work at the dispatch center and can read that information, and were able to give me the information that allowed us to compile these numbers. However, since this has been brought to light, and I tell you, when I got the email, and I read the email, I'm assuming you all read the email with the $150 loss, my heart dropped. You have asked me pointedly, others have asked me pointedly, have you dropped calls? We have. Unfortunately, it's a manpower issue, it's who's available issue kind of thing. We weren't able to respond to all of them, and it's unfortunately going to happen. It's my intention, after this all is said and done, to meet with Dave Tuttle and his supervisors and look at a way where we can create documentation or whatever to be able to adequately track, that we don't have 2 sets of numbers, that compete with each other. Okay? And I know these are a lot of numbers to throw through your head, but now issues that we've identified as a result of that email is the original EMS response SOG that I was talking about earlier stated that our engine 653, was a primary EMS response unit and respond with a minimum of 2 or preferred 3 personnel, 2 of which had to be either EMTB or EMT first responder, and the driver must have a Class B non-CDL driver's license. The problem, not all our personnel were at that level. EMTB, EMT first responder, or didn't have the appropriate Class B CDL license. The action we've taken is all members are now certified as EMT first responder or EMTB, or in the process of receiving those certifications. That was all happening before these numbers came out, so it just kind of fell into it. So it's not like we rushed them. They've been doing this. We have changed this. We have done recently. We have changed our departmental operational procedures. The primary response vehicle for EMS is now Rescue 658, which is more or less a pickup truck, which has been moved from Station 2 below the hill up to here, and where only a standard driver's license is required, no special license to drive it, and just 1 person with a medical license can respond. Driver's training is ongoing to get those who do not yet possess a Class B non-CDL driver's license the certifications they need. And as I said earlier, the fire department will be tracking all calls each month to monitor missed calls. And one thing I think everybody needs to understand on EMS calls, and I can attest, I went through all those reports and everything. We did not miss a fire call. We did not miss an accident with injuries. Anything that we refer to as a critical incident, we did not miss. The ones that we did not were EMS. We have a unique situation here when we're dispatched on an EMS call, it's dual dispatch. We get Peoria Heights Fire and we get AMT. Peoria Heights Fire is considered the primary non-transport agency for Peoria Heights, and AMT is considered the primary transporting agency for Peoria Heights. It's been like this since they shut down the ambulance in 2014. When they eliminated the ambulance, the medical care was transferred to us. Not that something we had. At that particular time, the fire department had 4 people with EMS license. We had to push to get our personnel up to at least the first responder level, and we've done that. There are going to be those times, ladies and gentlemen, that we're going to miss calls because they are volunteers. And it's a lot easier to make that decision when you're at home. A call comes in to look at it, particularly if it's an EMS call, whether you're going to go or not. It's a conscious decision that has to be made by the individuals. If they, if they're sick, if the kids are sick, stuff like that, they get that call, they know at least all the citizens are protected in one way or another. I do not believe in all these runs that we responded to that any of the residents of Peoria Heights was wanting for anything. And I'll open up for questions.
Just so I'm clear, so the EMS calls are dual dispatch?
Correct.
So AMT and Peoria Heights Fire Department respond?
Correct.
So when we're saying missed calls, no one's sitting at home on the floor and no one shows up. Someone shows up.
Somebody shows up. It might not be somebody from Peoria Heights Fire, but somebody shows up.
Somebody shows up.
And honestly, this has been a great wake-up call for all the members of my department as well. None of them had any idea that the number was that high. We figured it was a lot lower than that. But again, like I said, we didn't track it. So if you don't track it, I guess an issue I have is if there's a problem out there, somebody's going to complain about it, and it's going to get to me eventually, whether it would be the citizenry or it would be AMT or anybody else that's involved. I would receive some kind of complaint. In the 8 years I've been the fire chief here, I have received one complaint, and that complaint was over a response time for a fire, and we were easily able to refute that. I understand your concern. I understand my concern. Those numbers were not good for me. But the only thing I can say that I'm happy with, at least I know that the citizens of Peoria Heights were taken care of in one way or another.
So will you be working with Mr. Tuttle as well on, I mean, if he's got so many volunteers, he's got 70 of them,
He's got 50, he said.
50, that maybe there's something that they're doing in their community that's pulling in more?
Oh, believe me, we're reaching out. We're trying to. We do know we have 22 personnel on our roster. That's not critical. The way I look at it, when we get to 14 or 15, that's critical. But it's not at a level we need to be at. We need to be around 30. That makes it a lot better. We've ran for a long time with 25 or 26. But the issue is, where do these people work? When are they available? Do I have a crew that's available during the daytime? Do I have a crew available that's during the afternoons or evenings? Truthfully, I can't dictate that. You know, if somebody comes up here and they're willing to do this and they can physically do the job, then yeah, bring them on. There's a multitude of things we are looking into to enhance our response. And I tell you, I can't do anything about these numbers. That's in the past. I can't change that. The only thing I can do with the help of all these people here is to move forward, identify what the problem is, correct it, and move forward. And that's what we are doing. Okay? Like I said earlier, no one was more surprised and concerned of that number.
Thank you for clarifying that, Chief.
I have a couple of things, Chief Walters.
Yes.
Number one, I just want to say I love seeing all the support with you guys coming here. You know, you are a vital part of this community, and I would love to see your support when this is over and done with too. Like, seeing you guys come to meetings and do things like that shows everybody in the community how much you care about the community. So I think by being here, it helps out, but I hope that continues on after this goes. You know,
Okay.
I'd like to hear your input on things like that. Second, I'm happy to hear that you're pushing out your retirement. But are you ready for that? Like, I feel like you were pretty committed on retiring and having that retirement. And when you sit here and say that you are gonna, you know, it's really important to you to kind of bring life to the fire department again, like, do you have that in you? Is that something you really want to do because you were so set on retiring?
Sarah, it's the right thing to do. Don't always like it, but if it's the right thing to do, you got to do it. And that's how I've always been. That's how my dad was. And that's kind of who I pattern myself after. And I did pattern that. Yeah, at 65, I'd like to retire. I can hold that off to ensure that this department moves in the direction it needs to go to. I cannot leave this for someone else.
Okay.
Okay?
I feel like you have a lot of things that you want to accomplish. Have you, like, thought about, like, writing that down and making kind of like an outline or a rough plan on all the things you would like to accomplish so that we could help you with that, or see it as well?
I'm glad you asked that, because tomorrow is our normal meeting night, and we have an officers meeting beforehand.
Okay.
And that is the agenda.
Okay.
And it's not just going to be Greg Walters coming up with this. It's going to be the insight from all the staff that we have, from the officers, and then we're going to take it to the body of the association, get ideas, and to move forward. I've already identified some that we are moving forward with. I didn't give them a choice. That's my decision, and we are moving forward with it because it's going to prove better for us.
Okay. And then you did state that some of the personnel does not meet all the requirements, being first responder or EMTV or have the appropriate driver's license. So since everyone is working on that, do you have a timeline on when everyone will fall into all of those categories?
I'd like to say yes, but it all depends on when the classes are available and the classes are done. That's what dictates it.
Okay.
When the class availability and stuff of that nature.
Well, what does it take to get a Class B non-seasonal driver's license?
It's getting them to go down and the first thing they have to do is they have to go down and take the written test.
Okay.
And then they have to get their temporary license. And then they get to drive for a while and get comfortable with it. And then they take one of our apparatus down and drive it for the driver's test. When that's done, it's done. It's making sure they're available to get down there. And that's an issue that we can handle internally.
Okay. I mean, I understand that all these people are volunteering and giving up their time, but is there some kind of requirement, like everyone needs to have a Class B license within a year from today? Like, I feel like there needs to be some kind of time limit on that to guarantee that, like, everyone has it, because it's unfortunate that we miss calls just because someone doesn't have the appropriate driver's license.
My thoughts exactly. I suppose that's something we can look into. You know, I'm kind of looking at it by person basis.
Right.
You know, hopefully the conversation that has been stirred as a result of all of what's happened regarding the fire department has generated some interest from people that live in Peoria Heights and those that live in the perimeter around here. Nothing solid yet. But those individuals, as they come up, will then be put into the system to take whatever tests they need to take and stuff of that nature. Mm-hmm.
I'm 58 years old with that, so we don't really need a license.
Right. And having 658, that's a good point. Yeah. But to drive the engine and the ladder truck, my ideal is having everybody who can do everything.
Right. I mean, it'd be, if two people are here first and there's a fire and at least some of you can go, it's important that some of those people have the appropriate driver's license. Correct?
Your husband was a volunteer, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Firefighter, correct?
Yes.
There's a different mindset, unfortunately, and maybe this is throwing a stone at this, from getting a tone out from an EMS call and a tone out for a fire.
No, I understand that 100%. I'm just saying, like.
Tone out for a fire, they go through walls. And it's just the adrenaline, because that's what they want to do.
I understand.
Primary, most of them want to be firefighters. They understand doing EMS as part of the job. Okay?
Yes. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Trustee Weisenberg, we would be at the next discussion item, wording of a advisory referendum on the April election ballot. You can start that out, please, if you would.
I will. I was under the impression Mark was going to be here.
No, he's not at a committee meeting. He'll be here at our next board meeting. But he is still working on the wording regarding the referendum if the board decides to move forward with the referendum. So he's still working on that wording.
Okay.
He did give me that email earlier, but he is actually at another meeting. So he will be here at our board meeting, not the committee meeting.
Okay. I think we talked about the wording of the question quite a bit last meeting. I don't think there was a lot of agreement on what the actual wording should be. When I spoke to Mr. Walton right before last meeting, he stressed that it had to be neutral. So I guess my opinion of neutral means just the question. So I don't know if we have any more to discuss about the question without.
I think when he said that, Brandon, he was going to work on it, it's just not complete yet. I was hoping to have that tonight, but he stated he does not have it ready yet. As soon as I get it, I will put it out to all the board members.
Okay. So
I
let's.
think, why don't we just follow what the question that was put out there for the ambulance? Because really that question kind of follows the same of what we're asking of the citizens. It wasn't just a, do you want the ambulance or don't you? There was more to it than that.
I don't think the ambulance question was neutral at all, in my opinion. I think that's where some of the disagreement was last meeting.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all, but why is it that question could have been on there that way then, and now it can't?
That was one of the questions I'm going to ask.
I think it'll be structured the same. I don't know what the percentages would be. That'll be different, obviously, because the numbers are different. But I think that council is looking to structure it the same. I just don't know what the numbers are. So that's what he's working on.
Okay.
And that depends on the option. or the direction the board gives, that's going to have a big impact on that percentage.
I feel like that's something we should discuss at the next meeting and focus on between now and then.
Yeah, obviously, we have time, and I was hoping it would be ready for tonight, but obviously it is not. He does not have it ready, so that's why he's not here, so.
Chief, when it is ready, can we be emailed that so we have time to review it prior to a meeting?
Yeah, as I just stated, as soon as I get it, you will get it.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
No, it's all right, I'll send it out to
Let's
everyone.
try and have him get that before Labor Day so people can review that over the
Well, I
weekend.
hope to have it, yeah, by the end of the week.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Marshall, I looked up the previous question, and I assume, I wasn't really paying attention to Heights politics at that time, but I assume that when it came up to that 0.22% to protect public safety, that was a number that was determined through a budgeting process. We've had no budgeting process. We've not sat down, looked at a budget, and went through it line by line to even know what this would even cost, if anything, in additional taxes. So I think that discussion has to be had first.
Well, so if we're going to put it on the referendum in April, we should be pretty much through the budget by then, correct?
Correct.
I mean, so we could come up with a number. I mean, how soon do we have to have that submitted for it to show up on the April ballot?
I believe it's November.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
time frame. I don't know the answer to that, but I do know there's a time frame that,
Well, I figured there was a time frame, but I didn't know it would be November to show up in April.
I believe so.
it's a certain amount of days before the,
Okay, well,
The
then we
election.
won't have time to.
Yeah, I would never vote to put a number of a tax increase before we even knew what we needed to increase.
I think we have to decide what direction we're going. We might be going a direction where that might not even be needed.
Well, it wouldn't have been needed with the ambulance because it didn't cost us anything with the ambulance, but Peoria is going to cost us something. It will at some point exceed what we're paying now. I mean, that's just the way it is, especially with public pensions.
I think all of these
So at
options
some
will
point-
exceed what we're paying now.
So at some point, there's going to be a tax increase or some kind of increase even to pay for Peoria. Because there's not a person on this board that really thinks it's going to stay at $150,000. I don't. So we can't possibly tell the people of Peoria Heights that they're going to get a tax increase if we keep our fire department, but they're not going to get a tax increase if we go to Peoria, because no one can make that promise. So the question, when we put it on the ballot, really has to be neutral, in my opinion, because if we tell the people of Peoria Heights, hey, you're going to get a tax increase if we keep our fire department, and 10 years down the road or 5 years down the road, Peoria doubles it or triples it, then what?
So are you proposing just to ask the question, should we keep our volunteer fire department or our local fire department and not contract with Peoria?
Correct.
Because we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know whether
Correct.
we will have a tax increment, whether we contract with Peoria or whether we
Correct.
don't. We could also have a
Right.
tax increment if we don't.
That's what I'm getting at. So we can't.
I don't know about that. I think that's a leading question. I mean, Cheryl spoke to that last week. I think between now and the next meeting, we need to have a conversation with council. He needs to give us an example of what a question looks like. We need to examine it and have this conversation at the next meeting.
well, and I will stand corrected, but I've seen a lot of ballot initiatives, whether they start with the state, I think there's one going to be on this general election ballot, whether they come from the county or whether they come from municipalities, there's always an explanation to the public of why you're asking the question. So, I mean, to ask a question without giving any information, I mean, I could ask you, would you like a new vehicle? And I think your answer is going to be yes, but there may be expectations that go along with that. So I think giving the public information is helpful, and even if they're estimates, we know we have good estimates of whatever option the board decides to go with, what those costs are going to be.
Right. Well, I would just like to actually do a budget before we present any tax increases to the people of Peoria Heights, because I'm sure there's room for reductions so that the tax increase, if we do have to do a tax increase, won't be as large. So we should at least have a finalized budget so that we know what additional funds we're going to need.
Which option do you want to see the budget on though? Because I feel like there's a budget if we go with Peoria Fire, there's a budget if we just keep it as it is, there's a budget if we just hire a chief, there's a budget if we do a duty crew. So
Yeah.
I feel like that's a lot of time to have 4 different budgets, so we have to kind of like bottleneck that in a little bit. So like, which areas would you like to see that done?
I agree, and as I understand it, our focus was on hiring the full-time chief. I don't think we were at the duty crew discussion yet. Even Chief Walters said that that was several years down the line, once the development happens and that we see if that revenue starts coming in, and there may not be a need for a tax increase.
So you want to see a budget on a full-time chief? Okay.
And then if you went with Peoria, there wouldn't be one because it would be less than what we've already budgeted, correct?
The number was just an
You're going
estimate.
by, like, do you have any idea has Peoria given you any indication at all as to how long that contract would be in effect?
I had a brief conversation with Chief Artis, and I can ask Peoria to come up and make a comment about that. I'm not sure where they're at on a long-term contract. I did tell them, or said that if that was an option, this board would definitely request a long-term contract, and he said that he was going to work on that. I'm not sure where he's at this point, but Chief Bachman.
Yeah. Sorry, Chief Artis couldn't be here. Had another meeting. So what we had talked about, and discussions have been ongoing, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we're talking about a yearly contract. And I want to be transparent, I want to clear some things up because I've heard some numbers tossed back and forth around, and I keep hearing the 150,000. Well, that number is based off 2019 data calls that we were able to gather the data from, I think Chief Tuttle, or I'm not sure where the data came from, but we got your calls, and it all matched the numbers that Chief Walters was just talking about as far as how many calls you had in 2019. We basically took and are charging $750 for an engine company response and $100 for a bat chief. So depending on the call and what our SOGs dictate, and that could be a discussion too among yourselves, but so like for instance for a fire alarm we send an engine company, a truck company, and a battalion chief. So you add those numbers up, and that's basically how we come up with the numbers for the 150,000. So this was based off your 2019 data. It could be more next year, it could be less. It's all based on a call, so service use. Whatever you use, you pay for. Now, if you end up with a house fire and we're here 6 hours, 4 hours, it doesn't cost you any more. It's just you pay for the engine that comes. And so it's based off the 2019 data. Now, as far as increases, I think Chief Artis was in communication with the city manager over a 3% increase yearly, basically a cost of inflation type increase. So every year, possibly looking at a 3% increase. Now that could be something that could be talked about. I don't know if Mr. Sutton has spoke with the city manager about that yet, but there's been some discussions between Chief Artis and myself about what that looked like in the city manager. Just a 2 or 3%, but I think it landed at 3%. And that's something maybe you want to have a conversation over how you would deal with that.
The only conversation I had with Chief Artis was if this was a long-term contract, say 10, 12 years, that other than a cost of living increase, there would be no other increases. As far as a number, we didn't discuss that, but we did say, I did ask if that would be the only increase built into that, if that is the direction this board went. So that's how we left it.
Right, so basically, the $750 for an engine and $750 for a truck and $100 for a bat chief would be the same, or would be for a year, and then if you guys want to do a yearly contract, we're just talking about a 3% kind of cost of things going up as they do about 2 or 3% a year. Also, we had some discussion, and I know one of your options was a temporary option to get you by for 6 months till you decided what you were going to do. And Chief Artis and I had a discussion over that. I don't know where the conversations are on that, but I mean, along with that option, the number 2 option, which is the one we've all been discussing, could be also done in a temporary fashion if you needed to do it for 6 months, see what happens. So I mean, that's something you can work out with discussions between your village administrator and city manager.
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. You may not be able to answer this, but
Okay.
to make sure I'm understanding it correctly, so the 153,000 that we've been quoted is just an idea, right? So at the end of the, like, let's say we take you on January 1, then January 1 of 2022, or 2022, you then would figure out how much we, like, how do we pay this? Like, how would we be paying this monthly, yearly, you know, how that would go?
I think that, yeah, I wouldn't be able to answer that. I think that's something that could be worked out, again, between the village administrator and Peoria City Manager, whether it be monthly, quarterly, yearly.
Okay.
That would be up to
But
those negotiations.
But this 153 is just an average, so it's really gonna be based on usage. So we get this hotel, we have these condo buildings, and our call volume doubles, this price is probably going to double.
Yeah, it's going to go up. I'll be 100% transparent. You're getting a usage fee, so if you use it more, then it'll cost you a little more. If you use it less, it costs you less. So long-term, you have, you know, typically the newer buildings on occasion can cause fire alarms and whatnot, but again, that's discussion to be had, again, you know, kind of clearing up the muddiness of this, where, you know, I know that there's, you could have your police officers respond, units can be deferred, things like that. And again, we haven't gotten that far because we don't know where we're going with this yet. So, you know, it depends on how we handle this and what kind of deal we can work out if you chose to go that route.
That's more contract specific, I'd imagine.
Exactly.
So these, like the 750 for the engine, the 750 for the truck, and the $100 for the battalion chief, those numbers would go up 3% every year for cost of living.
That's what, you know, again, there's some talks that need to probably be had, but that's what the proposal looks like at this point.
Just want to make sure I understand. Thank you.
Yep.
Now, are you able to make this decision just in the fire department, or does this have to go in front of your board as well?
So, yeah, so the city manager would probably make a recommendation to the city council, and they would have to probably vote on it. I'm fairly certain of that, yes.
So really, I mean, it could still kind of change then, possibly, based on what your city council wants to do.
It's possible.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, one more discussion item. Trustee Weisenberg, an ordinance establishing the office of the chief of the fire department of the Village of Peoria Heights. You want to start that out, please?
Sure. This is regarding, obviously, an ordinance establishing the office of the chief of the fire department of the Village of Peoria Heights. But with Greg's retirement being postponed, how does that affect this discussion?
It would just be for future action. It wouldn't
Okay.
pertain obviously to Chief Walters, but it would, you know, in future, when he does retire and the replacement, this would
Okay.
set precedent.
Okay. So anyway, this discussion item is regarding creating a paid fire chief position. So if anyone's got any discussion on that.
I mean, I
The
read
ordinance
it.
is in the packet here. I've read over it. It seems pretty standard.
Yeah, if this is the direction we decide to go,
Right.
it looks good.
This is just a standard department.
I think maybe in light of the announcement tonight, we want to sleep on this, and do you want to come back to this maybe if necessary? That makes sense?
Yes.
Anything else under fire, trustee?
None.
Anyone else? Thank you all for being here tonight on that discussion. So we'll get back to administration. That will be next. And those of you who waited through this, I appreciate that. Trustee Gett, we have a discussion item, the Boo Bear 5K race on Saturday, October 3rd, 2020. Is there someone here for that event? Welcome, come forward. Please tell us about your event.
Okay, I'm Alex Lavin. I'm from the Yellow Bear Foundation. So this would be our third race in the Heights. So we did it in 2017, 2018, and 2019. Is that right? Yes. So we are just looking to do it again, and it goes from Marietta down Miller to Greenview and then loops back around. So it's from Heritage Square. They've already approved it. We've added, a lot of new safety features to the run as far as the waves only be groups of 50 to kind of stagger out the amount of people there at once. And I guess any questions about that? I have maps if anyone wants to see any.
We have the information in front of us, but if you just give a brief description of the organization, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah. So the Yellow Bear Foundation represents immune-compromised people. So our whole point of existence is to kind of spread awareness about that. And then right now, we're really pushing for plasma donations. There's been a shortage the past about 2 years, especially with COVID now. The more we can get plasma, the better. So that's kind of our major drive right now.
So I imagine with that being your central focus, immune compromised, you are very aware of organizing this in a way that is, aware of COVID and that type of thing. And, okay.
Correct.
Any questions?
Well, I'm sure we worked with you before, and I'm sure you probably already talked to the chief and worked out arrangements for this. And I don't have a problem with this at all. I think it's a great program. Do we need to put this on the next meeting for approval?
Yes.
So I move that we do that unless somebody has an objection to it.
We're going to send this to the full board for final action. You want to approve it tonight?
Right.
We can, as long as there's no objection, approve these tonight?
No, it's fine with me. I don't know.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, who was the initial? Trustee Gadd, are you making the motion?
Making a motion to approve it
Thank
tonight?
Any discussion further? Madam Clerk, when you're ready, call the roll.
Thank you. Trustee Weisenberg, you seconded?
I did.
Thank you very much. Trustee Carter?
Aye.
Trustee Marisko?
Aye.
Trustee Kazan?
Aye.
Trustee Gadd?
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg?
Aye.
Trustee DeVore?
Aye.
Thank you. Good luck with your event.
Thank you.
Next is the Central Illinois Center for the Blind and Visually Impaired event on Thursday, October 15th, 2020. Is there someone here for that? Welcome.
Past president.
Thank you all very much.
My name is Mark Bean, past president of the Peoria Heights Suburban Lions Club. We recently repartnered back with the Blind Center in Peoria at the beginning of the year, and we're trying to do an event that celebrates the National White Cane Day, which is October 15th. Unfortunately, Peoria does not have a club, so we're trying to arrange our starting event over here in the Heights. We're trying to use the park, and we're probably looking at 30 people. With the COVID and everything, it's going to be a small crowd to start this year, and it's brand new. So we're looking at 2 to 4 p.m. on the 15th, which I believe is a Thursday, and we decided we could contain it right in this park area. We wouldn't have to use the street. And so I'm looking for approval for that event.
So what is this, like music and stuff?
What we're planning on doing is having a couple of educational type of projects and then just kind of a walk. So no food, no music.
Okay.
Hopefully some publicity would be nice.
Right, we could probably put it on our website.
Anyone else? Trustee Gatt, can I get a motion to approve this, please?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other questions? Madam Clerk?
Are we voting to approve it, or?
Yes, approving it.
Trustee Carter?
Aye.
Trustee Marisko?
Aye.
Trustee Kazan?
Aye.
Trustee Gadd?
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg?
Aye.
Trustee DeVore?
Aye.
That passes. Good luck, Mark, with your event. Okay, Trustee Gatt, we beat it. I'm lost. I got to find my place. All right. An ordinance pertaining to the local cure program.
Yeah, I was hoping Attorney Walton would be here, but this is basically the program they have for reimbursing, correct me if I'm wrong, for any expenses we incurred for the coronavirus. It says coronavirus urgent remediation support program, so you want to take a shot at it, Chief?
You did.
I mean, it pretty much says if we get anything we incurred expenses-wise for that, we can get reimbursed for this. And we need to get this passed through so we can get paid.
That is correct. Council recommend us passing this ordinance so we could receive funds, as trustee Getz stated, and fund, or expenses we are out regarding the COVID-19 era, so this is almost a no-brainer.
Any questions? Anything
So-
else under administration? All right.
Well,
So this CURE program is so that we, as a village, like us, will get paid back for what, like masks or
There-
cleaning?
Well,
or-
there's a lot of things. There are overtime that the police department, I mean, there are a lot of different aspects of it. I'm not sure what the list is. I have it up there, but we put in for a lot of things to get reimbursed for. But we have to have this ordinance on the books, council stated, to be even eligible, so.
Okay.
So we can turn in the officers overtime?
Some of it.
Some of it.
Some of it. There's strict guidelines, and we're going to try, I'm sure like every other agency in the
Yeah.
state, so, see what we can get.
so,
Anything
yeah,
else under
so we go
administration?
ahead. Do I have to make the motion that we put it on the next agenda, or can we pass this one too?
We'll just put it on the agenda.
Put it on next week's, next one, okay. I move we put it on the next agenda then.
Okay, so you're down, nothing else on administration?
not
We'll
anything
go on
else.
to miscellaneous business.
I have a couple items, Mayor. First of all, I just want to remind everyone that we're having a voter registration program spearheaded by Tanisha Kaysen, a Peoria Heights resident, this Saturday from 9 to noon here in the, what do we call it?
Tower Park.
Tower Park. I was thinking, the plaza is what I was thinking, Tower Park Plaza. And all different parties will be represented, and we hope everyone shows up, and we are looking forward to it. And then in addition to that, the webinar number 2 for the comprehensive plan for our 20-year outlook is happening on September 10th at 6 p.m. So we'd like everyone to participate in that. And again, I've said this before, but if you aren't able to participate from home, you can come to Village Hall, and we have possibility for you to participate from here. We'll be talking about parks, open spaces, and environmental features. So we hope people participate in that, as many as that can. September 10th at 6 p.m.
You want to mention the meeting today?
Sure. Oh, yeah, that's very exciting. So we had a meeting today with a potential entrepreneur that wants to come to Peoria Heights. This particular person is interested in bringing rickshaws to Peoria Heights. I don't know if any of you are familiar with a rickshaw. So traditionally, I guess they would be running operated, but this would be a bicycle that would serve potentially as a taxi cab that would go from anywhere in the village of Peoria Heights. Like, let's say someone is at dinner at Jim's or the Steakhouse Bistro, and they want to go down and have see something at the Betty Jane, but also potentially could take you home or pick you up. So it was a very exciting meeting, and we're looking forward to potentially pursuing that. It's akin to the pedal bar, but does not compete with the pedal bar. It's basically a transportation service.
Are they already doing that? I saw them riding down the street on Friday, and so I was curious if that was already.
They are not doing it for the village of Peoria Heights as a service. Maybe the owners of this vehicle were just taking it out for a test drive.
I mean, they shouldn't be. I'm not saying, I
didn't see
think
any
I've seen one too, and I don't think it's this gentleman, but.
Oh, is that right?
Well, I don't
Okay.
know. I saw one that was really lit up, and this has been maybe pre-COVID, that was.
No, this was just on Friday. There was no one riding in it, just someone driving it, and I meant to ask Chief about it in my meeting with him this week, but I had forgotten. But
What color was it?
Yellow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so the owner of these 2 vehicles, their rickshaws are yellow. And I don't know for certain, but I imagine that they were probably doing a test drive. I don't
So
think.
then, will there be, if we were to do this, will there be some kind of permit fee like we have for the pedal car?
I think it would look a lot like we would create an ordinance such as we did with the pedal bar. And of course, we have to look at that ordinance. We need to have a conversation with the owners of the pedal bar. But this is really a transportation service, whereas the pedal bar
Is
is
experience.
an experience. I mean, there's no alcohol served on this. It's basically like a taxi cab, but a bicycle taxi cab.
So trustee DeVore, I mean, this came to us today. We're going to put it in your hands, the board's hands, and you can craft it any way you wish, but person is ready to get in business, and, I would expect that, again, as it was said, that it would be done similar to the way we did the pedal bus, but
And
we
I-
just want to make you aware of it.
Yeah, I just want to say, I think this is, when we heard it, I personally was very excited. This is the type of thing that you can ride in Manhattan, Boston, Dallas, those cities are able to deal with it, with traffic and that type of thing. I think we certainly can manage it as well. It creates a destination experience to the Village of Peoria Heights. And I just want to compliment my fellow trustees and the mayor and the administrator. I mean, these types of things are coming to us because of the activity happening in the Village of Peoria Heights. I felt it was very gratifying listening to the owner of this particular business.
Thank you. Anyone else under miscellaneous? All right, we'd be at payment of bills. May I have a motion to pay the bills?
I make a motion to pay the bills.
Second?
In a second. Any question on the bills?
I do have several. On page 2, the garbage contract and the recycling contract, is it duplicated? Are we paying them twice?
It shows that we paid them on the 6th.
Yeah, it shows that we paid them on the 6th and the 20th. And that wasn't the only duplication.
So, Trustee Weisenberg, what's happening there is they don't have an automated system to send out their invoices, so depending on when their staff has time to send out invoices, depends on when it hits our billing cycle and when we're generating bills. So that last one, they sent it closer to the end of month in July, and we didn't process bills again until the beginning of August. The next one, they were more prompt about sending out, so we sent it out right away.
Okay. And then recording and editing Tower Talk 16. On, what's the date on this one? 8/6.
Yes.
But then there's also Tower Talk episode 16 on 8/20.
Yes, so I spoke to Chris about this because I noticed that there was a missing Tower Talk in there. There's no Tower Talk 17, and I didn't have Tower Talk 17, so I was asking him about the episode orders. That should have actually been corrected. The one that says 16 and 17 is actually, or the one that says 16 and 18, those ones too close together, are 17 and 18. And so we received a bill for episode 16 later on.
Okay.
And I will change that in the system tomorrow. We do have an invoice that has that correction.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
That's all I got.
Anyone else?
I guess I just had one quick question. Usually when something's a little bit higher, it jumps out at me, but, so this would be for Chief Sutton, but the animal control services, is that for like wild animal, like animal, like, what kind of animals?
That's for paws, like if we have any dog calls or anything, we've had contract with paws for years. And
So do we just pay them once a year, or
It's annually, yes.
annually?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that makes sense.
Well, we pay a month, I think it's broken down
It's broken down quarterly.
quarterly?
Yeah,
Okay.
they broke it down for us so that we didn't have to pay quite as much, quite
Right.
as often.
We've had contract with paws for,
Oh, it's
since
been,
since I've been here.
So do
Yeah.
they come and get the animals?
Well, it'd be, if there's a complaint regarding a dog that's running around with no leash, they'll come out, they actually write the fines
Oh.
to the homeowner, if they need to quarantine the dog or take the dog, if it's they handle it all. Obviously, we don't have the facility to house any type of animals here. But yeah, they take everything, I think there used to be called PCAP, well, it's
Yeah.
PCAPs now, it used to be paws. But they handle all of obviously, if there's a dangerous dog, call 911, the police department will come and take care of it, but we will then eventually call paws to handle it, that's what we pay them for. But that's only for, it's not for picking up a dead, raccoon in the street or anything like that.
I wasn't
You know, hats off to the Public Works guys. They do a great job of helping me out on that. We get a lot of those calls, but no, that's just for like, you know, and their fine structure is pretty heavy. So,
I did, just, this kind of off the subject, but I did see something this week on social media that, and I did not know this, I don't know if the other trustees knew this, but do people have, if they have more than 6 pets, they have to pay?
It's more than 4.
It's
4.
Once you hit 4.
Oh, it's more than 4.
Once you hit
Once you
4,
hit 4, you have to pay a yearly fee for that.
and it doesn't matter if it's 2 dogs and 1 cat, if it's
Or
3
birds or
animals.
whatever. It's a multi-pet license at 4 animals. You have to have that.
I did not know that, okay.
That's
I
what
will-
Chelsea-
That's why I only have 3 dogs.
I will just point out that we are reactive on that.
Are you out there daily seeing, you got a bird?
Is that
you got
one or
a
two
dog
fish?
and a cat?
I do have one more question.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
What is IMRF voluntary contributions for the library?
That would be an employee benefit. The short version is that IMRF limits the amount that you can contribute. It's based off of state statute, so employees have to contribute a set amount. IMRF did eventually add a thing where employees can voluntarily contribute up to a certain percentage of their salary into a separate fund that IMRF then maintains for them. It's not matched by the employer. It's something that IMRF offers as a benefit.
So why would a library?
Oh, we actually, because of the unique structure of the village, the same way that we levy for the library, we actually also do their IMRF services.
Okay.
They do they talk to their staff, they do everything, they just simply provide me with the paperwork and I report it to IMRF.
Okay.
Anyone else? Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Trustee Carter.
Aye.
Trustee Mariscal.
Aye.
Trustee Kazan.
Aye.
Trustee Gett.
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg.
Aye.
Trustee DeVore.
Aye.
All right, that passes. I want to wish everyone have a happy and safe Labor Day weekend. I hope to see all of you that are able to make it Saturday. Trustee Gett,
I make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor of the motion to adjourn signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, we're adjourned.